Everybody, we are back again to discuss United Hatzalah and bring some of your attention to this amazing organization. Today, my guest is Adele Sandberg, who is an international board member and huge supporter and advocate for United Hatzalah. Welcome, Adele.
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
So last week we had the pleasure of interviewing Danielle David, who is the director of South Florida for United Hatzalah of Israel, and we spoke a lot about what United Hatzalah does to save lives throughout Israel. We're going to dive a little bit into a recap today about that, and we're going to talk about some of the other incredible initiatives that Adele supports, and share some of your own personal experiences and insights, having been with United Hatzalah for so many years. So Adele, welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here and to tell you about United Hatzalah. This is an amazing organization based on volunteers, and we train them and equip them, and then they can go out and save lives. The founder, Levi Meyer, he had a dream. When he was a little boy, he wanted to save lives, and he grew up and he started volunteering on an ambulance. And after a number of months, he said, I'm not saving any lives. The ambulance gets here too late. So he came up with an idea of taking all of the equipment out of an ambulance and putting it on a motorbike. And he calls it an ambucycle. And this ambucycle can get through traffic and get to people and really save lives. So he now has 7,000 volunteer medics who are saving lives every day in Israel. They respond to more than 2,000 calls a day, and they never charge. Everything United Hatzalah does is absolutely free.
Which is amazing. In most places, even in civilized civilizations, in some of the most metropolitan cities in America, Miami, you call an ambulance, you expect to get a very large bill. For people who call United Hatzalah in Israel, absolutely no bill?
Right. No charge ever for any service. But they get there in hopefully less than 3 minutes, in some cases in 90 seconds.
How is such a response rate achievable? Now, we know that the ambucycle gets you there faster. You can weave through traffic and sort of stabilize patients before the ambulance arrives. But how can you achieve 90 seconds? What sort of resources and what goes into that, technology-wise, people-wise?
Well, what happened to Levi Meyer is he was on the ambulance, and the ambulance arrived, and it was a little 6-year-old boy who was choking. Unfortunately, by the time the ambulance got there, the child had died. A doctor who lived 1 block away came by and pronounced the child dead. And Ellie realized that if that doctor who lived just 1 block away had known about this child, that child would have survived. So he got the idea that people should be trained in neighborhoods and be able to respond to emergencies very quickly, And so if someone, for example, in your neighborhood and you have an emergency and they're right there down the street from you, they can get there and save your life.
And it's an amazing thing that we have such a service in the state of Israel. Frankly, I think we should have it everywhere, and it's hopefully one day United Hatzalah will be able to expand their initiatives or at least be replicated in many cities and countries around the world. I find one of the things I find very interesting is the technology that sits behind this. They have similar to an Uber system where a call comes in, and immediately, based on the location of the caller and the symptoms or reports from the caller, they can immediately identify who the closest paramedic, doctor, or medical professional is to them, who's waiting at the drop of a dime to drop what they're doing. And this is perfectly acceptable in the state of Israel. You're having a conversation with someone, they say, I got to go. They run down the street, save a baby, and come back to lunch. It's incredible. And the technology that they have to deploy that is really special.
Yes, we've been at the command center in Jerusalem, and it is incredible. They have on on every day, at every minute, an Arab speaker and a Hebrew speaker, so they can respond to calls. The calls come in, they are answered in 3 seconds. And then the closest people, the volunteers who are closest to that emergency, are immediately alerted, and they get there fast. We were at that center, and interestingly, underneath the main command center, there is a bomb shelter with a secondary command center, because in case of an emergency, they might have to move the whole operation underground.
So
October
they're
7th,
saving lives while running for cover.
Yes, but on October 7th, everything was so extreme that they had to use both the upper stages of the command center and the bomb shelter, and everything was fully, staffed so that they could respond to everything.
Adele, can you talk to us a little bit about October 7th, that dreadful day, and what that looked like for United Hatzalah, what the response was like, and how United Hatzalah played a part in that dreadful day?
Well, on October 7th, calls started coming into the command center. And pretty soon they realized, this isn't normal. Something is going on. Ellie is extremely careful. Ellie Beer, the founder, is extremely careful of the money that comes in. This is an organization where every penny is accounted for. And usually, if they take an EpiPen from the warehouse and give it to a volunteer, and the volunteer gives it to a patient, they know who the volunteer is, they know who the patient is. But on October 7th, they realized this is something unusual. And Ellie told his people, take our trucks, go to the warehouses, load everything onto the trucks and head south.
Into an active war zone.
Into an active war zone. And he called on ambulances from across Israel. They sped towards the south, and volunteers in their cars sped towards the south. He had hundreds of volunteers going down there. They got to the periphery, and within hours, they set up a field hospital. But then they were on the periphery, and they asked the command center, what should we do? And the command center, look, they're talking to volunteers. And they said, do what you think you need to do. Every single ambulance, every single volunteer sped down into the combat zone where the shooting was going on, risking their own lives. They were the only medics that were courageous enough to go in. And what they did is they got wounded soldiers and they put them in their cars. They were private cars. They got wounded civilians and they piled them into the ambulances, and they got them out of that area into the field hospital, where they could then be given medical treatment, and the most serious ones airlifted by helicopter to hospitals. We lost 2 volunteers that day. As I said, they were risking their lives. This was the live shooting zone. 2 of our volunteers were taken hostage to Gaza. The stories of heroism were remarkable, but they saved hundreds and hundreds of lives that day. United Hatzalah is the organization that saved all those lives.
And when we're talking about these volunteers, I think it's important to remind people that these are Jews, these are Christians, these are Muslims, these are people that don't believe in any one particular faith, all volunteering to save whomever needs help in the state of Israel. I think a lot of people have this notion that the state of Israel is a Jewish state, and they forget that there are 2 million Muslims that live in the state of Israel. There are, I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's 10% of the Israeli population is Christian. They make no distinction between these human beings. These are humans saving humans and doing everything they can, even going into a war zone without pay, without incentive, just for the sole purpose of saving lives. And I think on that day, we really showed the world what it is to be human.
Remember, the name of the organization is United Hatzalah, and that is bringing together Muslims, Jews, Christians, Bedouins, Drusim, every group. And as you said, they are working together to save lives. On that day, Black Saturday, October 7th, One of our volunteers who was killed was a Muslim, an Arab, and another was a Jewish volunteer.
It's terrible.
But I see this organization as a roadmap to world peace. It brings together people who could be enemies. And here, it doesn't matter whose life they save. They save a human being, and they work together and become friends, and it bridges the gaps in these communities.
I think there's an expression, they say that the blueprint for peace is United Hatzalah.
Yes, definitely the blueprint.
So you've been working with United Hatzalah for how long now?
Well, about 7 or 8 years. Right.
And how did you stumble upon United Hatzalah? How did you become aware of it, and what made you decide to get involved?
It's an interesting story. We actually were on an airplane, and we were sitting next to this man who kept dictating in Hebrew. And we asked him, "What are you dictating?" And he talked about United Hatzalah. And we were really, really interested, because this is an organization that is giving medical care and treating people, saving lives, and they don't charge. And so we took a taxi into New York City from the airport with Eli Beer, and the next morning he met us for breakfast. He came on one of these ambucycles, and we decided to donate an ambulance. And we donated the ambulance to Sderot. For those of you who might not know, Sderot is right on the border of Gaza, and it was the only United Hatzalah ambulance in Sderot. About 2 years later, there was a report that Gaza had been shooting rockets into Sderot. And we got a message from United Hatzalah that our ambulance saved 4 lives. They were on the road outside Sderot, and a truck had been hit, and our ambulance saved 4 lives.
And that's an incredible feeling to know that you donated an ambulance that otherwise would not have existed, and it, it's expensive to maintain these. I think an ambucycle starts around I believe at $36,000. It covers the cycle, the motorcycle itself, all of the equipment that needs to be mounted and attached to it, 3 years worth of life-saving equipment for it, and all the gear and personnel that go along with maintaining it. And again, oil changes, updates, mechanical changes, tire rotations, all these things that people don't realize. They say, well, I could buy a moped for less. This is not one of these mopeds, and you certainly can't operate it in the capacity that United Hatzalah does. Again, 2,000 calls a day on a normal day, not on one of the worst days in Israeli history.
Right. And you mentioned the upkeep, the gas. Do you know that the volunteers who ride these ambucycles, they pay for all of that out of their pocket?
Their own gas.
Yeah, I want to say something about these volunteers. These are not paid employees who work for a salary. These are people who are working from their hearts. And because of that, they go way above and beyond what you would expect from an emergency medical responder. I can tell you so many stories. For example, there was an ambulance driver who took an elderly man to the hospital. And when he got to the hospital, this man was so upset, and he said, I don't have money to get back home. The ambulance driver, the United Hatzalah volunteer, took 200 shekels out of his pocket and handed it to the man, so that after the man would be released from the hospital, he would be able to get back home. Now, where do you find an ambulance driver who will take someone to the hospital and then give of his own money to this person? There are so many stories of this. The volunteers come from all walks of life. They can be plumbers or lawyers or shopkeepers or housewives or they come from all walks of life, and they become trained emergency responders, and they drop everything to go for calls. And I think you mentioned before that they give up their income. There are shopkeepers who get a call, they close their shop and they go to get help. There are stories. There's a groom who was at the altar at his own wedding, and he left to go save somebody and then came back and finished the ceremony. The stories are remarkable. I don't know that
even my wife would have put up with that. Well, Adele, you brought a video today, and I think it's a 2-minute video. So if you guys, if we could put that up on the screen, I'd love for everybody to watch that video. Stick with us. It's a 2-minute video. When we come back from the video, we're going to continue the conversation about on one of Adele's passion projects, the Women's Division.
Right.
But for now, let's get that video on.
מתנדבי איחוד הצלה בעצם פזורים בכל הארץ. יש מתנדבים שגרים ביישובי העוטף בנתיבות שדרות אופקים. ולשמוע פרמדיק באופקים שסופר 17 גופות לצד פרמדיק נוסף בסדרות שסופר לנו עוד 30 ועוד חובש שנמצא על תחנת המשטרה ומנסה לחלץ 2 שוטרים שנפצעו והוא נפצע בעצמו. אנחנו מהר מאוד מבינים שהאירוע הוא גדול, מורכב בהרבה מאוד אזורים.
זכינו לטפל בשתי תינוקות מאוד חמודים, בני שנה תאומים. שלצערנו הרב, ההורים שלהם נרצחו.
Over the last 6 days, our unit has been giving care to wounded men, women, civilians, soldiers, children.
את נעמה קיבלנו על מזרון כביכול שכולו דם.
I've seen people that their limbs been taken out. I've seen mothers dead on top of their babies.
So many bodies, so many dead people. So many people that lost their legs, their hands.
We're waiting to go back to the field, waiting for the next updates.
יום שבת כשהתחילה המלחמה, פרס את הכוחות שלו, גם מהצפון, גם מהדרום, כולם התגייסו, כולם מתנדבים, כולם עובדים למען מדינת ישראל.
Of dry goods, food, there was clothing.
אני נמצאת באולמי אגמים בבאר שבע, כאן המתנדבים שלנו הגיעו, אנחנו מכינים ערכות ציוד רפואיות.
אני חושבת שכולם במצב חרדה, שאנחנו לא יודעים.
We've also been helping out some of the soldiers that have been coming by.
Here in Hatzalah, we all volunteer together.
זה לא היה קל לראות את כל מה שראיתי, את כל מה שאני אישית עברתי, ואם לא יחידת החוסן שתטפל בי, לא הייתי נמצאת כאן כרגע.
I know that we were in a big risk. My children asked me, Mommy, weren't you afraid? Yes, I was. But the knowledge that there is people who need the help and you can save them, cancel the fear.
Incredible video, and really just touching to watch so many volunteers on the ground saving lives and doing amazing things on that day and every day in Israel. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, that video was, if you hadn't noticed, was a focus on, I mean, these are a whole division of women volunteers. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Women's Division? How did it come about? Why the need? Who started it? And what's going on in the Women's Division?
The Women's Division is a part of United Hatzalah that was started by Eli Beer's wife, Giddy Beer. And it's an incredibly important element now in our efforts because we now have 1,500 female trained medical emergency medics. Right now, these women are at the home front. A lot of the men have been called to war, and they're fighting, and the women are now on the home front, and they are responding to all of these emergencies all over Israel. Women bring a special touch to United Hatzalah. They are especially important in things like when someone is giving birth. You know, to have female volunteers there who can be there to help a woman through this. And they also, there's something very unique about the women's organization, the women's part. And that is that when a woman goes out, and, you know, in some of these communities, the man is the most important person in the family, especially in the most religious communities, whether it's Jewish or Muslim. A woman goes out and saves a life. when she comes back, she gets more respect in her family. And the female children, her daughters, they start to have more aspirations for their lives. And then the women in their community start to have more aspiration. So it's a very, very important program that is elevating women all across Israel. And that's important for women across the world.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a domino effect that begins with these volunteers to set an example and really pave the way for aspirational women and women to have just as important a role as their counterparts.
Yeah. Now I think you just saw this video about some of the women who were active on October 7th and what they've been doing since this war has broken out. One of the women in that video actually told us that when she was one of the volunteers who went into the active combat zone. And when she got home that night, her children said to her, "Mommy, you could have been killed. What were you thinking?" And she said, "I had to go in. I had to help." That's because these are volunteers who are working from their heart, and they will do anything to help and save lives.
So let's talk a little bit about what people can do to help, right? Adele, you've been instrumental in bringing awareness and gathering friends and fundraising and building the initiative, the women's division and initiative. What can viewers at home, people that are watching this today, what can we do to help United Hatzalah?
Well, first of all, you can now be part of a life-saving organization in Israel. We need everyone's support. Do you know that on October 7th, Black Saturday, in one day, United Hatzalah depleted all of its medical supplies for an entire year, and they have to be replaced. I would like to tell you something about the psychotrauma unit of United Hatzalah. I want to tell you about Sharon Slater. Dr. Sharon Slater came here with a group from the women's division, and they came to help when Surfside, the Surfside tragedy occurred. Dr. Slater is a clinical psychologist, a specialist in trauma. She has 5 children, many grandchildren, and a private practice. She dropped everything to come here for a week to help the Miami community. I've been in touch with her, and if we have time, I would like to read from some of the emails she has sent us.
Absolutely, we have some time.
Okay, we have a few minutes?
Yeah,
okay, I mean, it's remarkable. Okay, October 7th, this is the day that Hamas attacked Israel. And I'm just going to take parts of what she wrote. She writes, "It's a very dark day for us. This is Israel's 9/11. We are fighting a barbaric enemy that murdered hundreds, wounded thousands, kidnapped mothers with infants, babies, and the elderly. As I write this, civilians are held hostage by terrorists. Many of my kids' friends are missing. Israel will never be the same. Please keep us in your prayers." The next day, October 8th, she writes, "One son is currently on a tank at the Syrian border. Our eldest son is in charge of local security down south. We also have 2 sons-in-laws on the Lebanese and Gazan fronts. I am scared for their lives. My daughters and grandchildren have moved in with me. There's a great need for mental health workers at the moment. Too many people have been traumatized. It's terrible. The thoughts of the kidnapped now being tortured in Gaza is too much to bear. May God keep us all safe and happy." A few days later, "Thank you all for your important work supporting us. I went down to the south. I volunteered for a morning shift and wound up staying for 2 days. The horror stories are horrific, way worse than what they printed in the papers. Psychologists from all over the country want to volunteer, but they are not specifically trained for trauma. The advantage of us who are trained by United Hatzalah, we are specifically trained for the psychotrauma unit. She then went on to say that because the whole country of Israel is traumatized, she wants to create a crash course in psychotrauma interventions that can be used immediately. And so last night, I got another email from her. And she said, this is, remember, she's still seeing patients. She's still volunteering. Her sons and sons-in-law are on the front line. Her grandchildren are living with her. She says, it's a crazy week. I've been seeing patients and I'm writing like crazy. And she has 2 protocols ready to go. One is a 1-hour crash course for mental health professionals in trauma intervention. And the other is a crash course for lay people in trauma intervention. And she says, with everything going on in the States now, I think that community leaders need to get some basic trauma training. I will be presenting via Zoom to American and European audiences. Can you imagine, with everything going on, Dr. Sharon Slater is thinking of us, about the rise in anti-Semitism here in the United States. And she has put together a crash program for us so that we can deal with our trauma here in this country. And she ends this letter. This is the email I got last night. This is my personal letter of love and thanks to you for all the great work you do to enable the women of United Hatzalah to contribute to Israel and the Jewish people. Everyone, you are the ones who are supporting us. You are our heroes. Now I'm asking everyone who has listened to this, I am asking you to become a hero. Now is the time. Israel is at a crisis. Our Jewish people are at a crisis. You can become a hero. Help us support the training of United Hatzalah women and men. They need help now. They need the money for medical supplies. They need to know that we are with them. And this is the time to give. During the Holocaust, a lot of people didn't know what to do. And afterwards they said, oh, I wish I had done this or that. And they felt very guilty. You will not feel guilty for anything that you give. You will never regret, no matter how much you give. You have to dig deep into your pockets now. And not only you have to ask your friends. You have to ask your neighbors. And not only Jewish friends. We're getting a lot of support from the Christian community. They know what we're doing as well. So ask all of your friends, get your children involved, and support United Hatzalah and the women, and you can be a hero too.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's important to mention that while some people have the ability to donate millions of dollars, and believe me, millions of dollars are needed. This is a very large organization. On a daily basis, there's 2,000 calls. And now, with the uncertainty of how long this war will continue, the need for United Hatzalah is drastically duplicated. Some people have the ability to donate hundreds of thousands or millions, and if that's you, we urge you to reach out. We urge you to donate. Some people have the ability to give $100 or $50 or $25. We did a campaign through some of our Compass colleagues with Compass Real Estate, and we're already up to $60,000 with over 200 people contributing. Some people gave $25, some people gave $2,500. Every little bit counts. This goes to gauze, this goes to oxygen tanks, they go to medic bags, which are incredible. I mean, the medic bag is a $5,000 bag. You have a book here I want to show real quick. You can donate to, what is it, A Day of Life?
This, I'll show you this book.
And we'll close with this because we're running out of time.
Okay, so, yes, as you said, an EpiPen is $135. If you donate an EpiPen, you will help save a life.
Save a life.
But for those of you who want to give a gift to someone you love, give them on their birthday a day of life-saving. And what happens is every action in Israel on that day of life-saving is in your honor. Every mitzvah that is performed will be a mitzvah in your honor. And it's the most incredible birthday present or anniversary present bar mitzvah
what you
present.
receive
You will then get a book, and it. I don't know if you can see it. It will tell you every action that was taken. There's a chart. It will show you how many cardiac arrests, how many lives were saved, how many strokes, how many children saved from choking.
And it details down to a list.
Right, there's a list. How many cardiac incidents, how many how many OB/GYN babies were delivered, all in your honor. So this is the best birthday present I ever got in my life, and I urge you,
and
it
has a full list of the call log, right? Every call that happened on that day.
At the end, you get a list. It goes on page after page after page, every single call that United Hatzalah went on that day.
Well, this and all this information is available at israelrescue.org/donate. Again, my name is Levi Meyer. Adele, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your passion for United Hatzalah. We hope that your passion will inspire so many other viewers who are watching this today to get involved at any level, volunteer, information, resource, or finance. It's all needed, and it's very, very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. And I want to say one more word to everybody. There is something in the Bible that asks a question: am I my brother's keeper? And I'm asking all of you, are you your brother's keeper? Now is the time. We need your help desperately now. So please, please respond and help United Hatzalah.
Thank you, Adele.